Patrick Moore, our guest, he calls himself a sensible environmentalist, which means balance environment, economy, have some dialogue, don't make outrageous claims, but if something really got to you, would you get in one of those boats again?
Oh, yeah.
And stop it?
I would.
So there's still a radical part of you. You're just saying, let's ask more questions. So take me back to nuclear energy. What about nuclear waste? How dangerous is it? Where do you put it?
It would be dangerous if it got on you, but fortunately it's not. Just in the same way that no member of the public has been harmed by a nuclear reactor in Canada or the United States or anywhere else in the West for that matter. Chernobyl, which was a stupid reactor design, is the only case of a reactor accident causing injury and death to people. No one has been hurt in North America in 50 years with over 120 nuclear reactors operating. The same is true of what is called nuclear waste. No one is being harmed by it. It is being successfully contained in containers that cannot break and that the waste cannot get out of.
Okay, but what if you have a successful terrorist?
Well, I just think that's really unlikely because the used nuclear fuel, as we prefer to call it, because over 90% of the potential energy is still in that used fuel after it's first passed through the reactor. That is why France has a huge recycling plant, and Japan just built one too, to recycle the used nuclear fuel, and it can be done over and over and over again, many times, eventually converting all the uranium into energy.
So you can recycle the fuel. Do we do it in North America?
No, we don't.
Why not?
That's a whole other story. Well, the rationale originally during the Cold War was that we didn't want the plutonium from the recycling process, which can be made into a bomb, to get into the wrong hands. But the Cold War is over, and France and Russia and China and India and Japan are all involved in recycling used nuclear fuel, so it doesn't really make the world safer for Canada and the United States not to be involved in it. And anyways, we're going to have to recycle it someday, but there's no time issue here. We can store that used fuel for 100 years and then recycle it. It's not a problem. And it's easy to store because it's not liquid, it's solid pellets that are slightly warm and not corrosive. If you put them inside a strong container, there's no way they can get out. And these containers weigh 80 tons. For a terrorist to steal an 80-ton container from a secure perimeter with razor wire and cameras and guards and machine guns and all of that, I don't think that would, 80 tons, you'd have to basically take over the country in order to get an 80-ton container somewhere away from where it is.
Okay, so what about a cyber worm, a Stuxnet or something like they had in Iran?
Wow. Do they have those?
Apparently. So I don't know.
I'm not an expert on that.
No, you're not an expert on that. Neither am I.
There, of course, are risks, but they're very minimal and they've never come to pass. I mean, people keep talking about the terrorists crashing an airplane into a nuclear plant. First off, that would be one messed up airplane because those nuclear plants have 5 to 6 foot thick reinforced concrete and steel walls around them. And so it would not be a good day at the plant if a plane crashed into it, but it would not breach the containment of the nuclear reactor, so it would be for naught.
Okay, now tell me your stance on fish farming.
I am totally in favor of aquaculture as a way of shifting from exploiting wild fish stocks to farming the sea. The same thing we did on the land 10,000 years ago. There is a huge potential in aquaculture for producing healthy food. Fish, seafood, and shellfish are generally healthier for us. The Japanese diet and the Mediterranean diet prove that. People are healthier and live longer and are less obese and all good kinds of good things where people eat more fish. And all the stories that's been made up about the fish farms and the sea lice on the British Columbia coast are a complete hoax. It is not true that the sea lice are killing the wild salmon. And 2 years ago, they were telling us the pink salmon and the broughton were going to go extinct. The last 2 years have seen near record returns. This year, according to the fishery scientists at the Pacific Biological Station, they've been doing tests out in the North Atlantic. This year, there are more salmon in the North Atlantic Ocean than in any time in recorded history.
But as you know...
and last year, 34 million sockeye came to the Fraser River after the collapse the previous year. But isn't it wonderful? Nature is not very predictable, and we don't know exactly all the things that are going on out there. But what we do know is that the salmon farms in BC are not a threat to the wild fish. As a matter of fact, what a crazy idea.
In the ocean or on land?
In the ocean.
In the ocean.
What a crazy idea. Suzuki and these guys and Greenpeace, they say the way to save the wild salmon is to boycott farm salmon and only eat wild salmon. So what they have done is got everybody eating wild salmon to save them?
Well, see, I think it tastes better. I do. I have to say.
You don't
that's
agree
kind
with
of practical.
the world's chefs. In fact, whenever chefs are put together with farmed and wild
Really?
salmon, they prefer the farmed salmon, for
Really?
sushi in particular, because it's
interesting.
so tasty and soft and buttery.
So why
and
do
fresh.
we, like,
I
I'm
love
not
wild salmon,
I'm
too.
not a fish scientist. I do not know. But I know that some scientists who have been on this show, anti-fish farm, anti-aquaculture, suggest that the Atlantic salmon should never mix with the Pacific salmon. If an Atlantic salmon gets out with the Pacific salmon, it's not good, and that there are definitely, I assume there are sea lice in all fish.
There are.
There's
fish
tumors in all
The farm
fish.
fish, when they go in the water from the hatcheries where they're reared on land in freshwater, have no lice on them, 0. There are no lice, sea lice in fresh water. Those fish go in with no lice. They get the lice from the wild, because the wild, not just wild salmon, but wild sticklebacks and wild herring and wild halibut have sea lice on them too. They breed in the ocean everywhere. And so when you put fish into a pen in the sea on the BC coast, they get lice. And but they have veterinary treatment.
What about what they feed the fish in the pens? I know you've done this. So
they feed them highly nutritious fish meal, fish oil, soy germ, and all kinds of additives that are put in the feed to make them healthy.
Right. So a fish is pretty good at converting feed into food because they're cold-blooded. Better than a cow.
Yes, one of the best things about aquaculture, and the reason why it's one of the fastest growing food sectors, 50% of all our seafood comes from aquaculture now worldwide, and it will soon be 75% and more.
Really?
Because the reason it's so successful partly is because people like seafood, but it's also because fish are so much more efficient at converting feed to food than land animals are. First, they're cold-blooded, unlike pigs and cows are warm-blooded, so they have to use quite a bit of their energy to keep their bodies warm like we do. But gravity is the other factor. All of us terrestrial animals have to fight gravity all day, and that takes a lot of energy. Whereas fish are in a basically gravity-neutral environment. They're not fighting against gravity.
Sure. Have you ever sat down with Alexander Morton or Rafe Mayer or some of the anti-fish farm people and debated?
They are crazy. I can't talk to them.
Well, don't say they're crazy. They're not crazy. They're just have a different opinion than you.
They certainly
or
do.
you'll get
yes.
sued. Yes, and
No,
we don't want
I
that.
think you can say people are crazy
Okay.
without getting sued.
Maybe so. In your opinion.
In my opinion, yes.
Fine. So no wonder you've caused a stir because you say we should be growing more trees and using more wood.
Yes.
In the right way.
Exactly. Obviously, if you use less wood, you end up using more steel, concrete, and plastic, which are fine materials in their own right, but they are non-renewable and they require a huge amount of energy to produce, whereas wood is made by solar power in the forest through photosynthesis. It grows itself. The leaves and needles of trees and other plants are by far the most important solar collectors on Earth. They are the original solar collectors.
Sure.
And we should, instead of covering the Earth with solar panels, we should cover the Earth with trees and use the wood for energy.
And I believe that we are hewers of wood. I do. I'm with you there. I just want it to be done properly, and I think we're getting so much better at it. In the north, the boreal forest, I'm a little concerned about some things that are out of sight. We're not up there. We don't know. The Spatsizi. Have you been to the Spatsizi where the sacred waters?
I spent 3 years trying to stop trophy hunting in the Spatsizi back in the Greenpeace days. In the end, our crew was beaten and their camp was burned by the guide outfitters, and we were taken to court for interfering with their business operations, and we ended up having to pay them a large sum of money to settle that case. So we lost that campaign at the time. We weren't against hunting. I don't believe in trophy hunting, but it wasn't that we were saying there should be no trophy hunting in BC. We were saying in a Class A provincial park where you can't so much as pick a flower, how come you can kill all the big best animals in there for their souvenir parts? You're not even eating them, So we thought we had a fairly solid ground there, but boy, we got beat really badly on that one. But in the end, they stopped trophy hunting in the Spatsizi Park.
Yes, and I know Wade Davis is fighting at the moment to stop a mine up there at the Sacred Headwaters, the Red Chris. He's not against mining. He just doesn't want it there. Last battles fought over water. Alexandra Cousteau was here this week, and she runs the Blue Legacy Project and suggests that we must pay close attention to our oceans and our streams and our rivers and not take too much out. Agree, disagree?
I agree that we need to manage things very carefully, but I don't necessarily agree that we shouldn't be able to move water from one watershed to another, as is done all around the world. In Canada, we have this basically zero tolerance position against any water exports, for example. Our north is extremely wet, and there is a lot of water there which could be considered surplus to the needs of the ecosystem, depending on how you define it. You know, as the climate warms, which it has been doing, we will probably get heavier rainfall and even more snow. It seems counterintuitive, but Al Gore was a little bit right when he said the other day that global warming can result in heavier snowfalls because the air is moister. It doesn't make sense to say that global warming causes colder temperatures, which some people also do that. But obviously global warming wouldn't make it colder. But global warming could make it snow more and rain more. And if there's enough water, why should, I mean, there is a need for irrigation water in many parts of this continent, so, and in many parts of this world. So I'm not fundamentally against moving water from one place to another in order to grow food.
Sure.
It just doesn't seem.
But as you know so well, sometimes our passion gets in the way of our brain power. It does. When people read Confessions of a Greenpeace Dropout, what do you want them to take home? What's the message in here for you?
The main message is two things. First, that human beings are part of the natural environment. We are not a rogue species or a plague or a cancer on the face of the earth. We are part of nature, and ecology is all about that all of nature is interconnected, and we're part of that. Instead of looking at human beings as being the enemy of the earth, we have to look at ourselves as being part of the whole ecosystem. The second message is critical thinking. When you are told something that there's going to be a catastrophe if this and that happens, or this chemical is going to kill you, get in and be critical in your thinking. When someone says, for example, that a certain chemical is linked to cancer in people, that word linked is a word that is used all the time. It doesn't say that chemical causes cancer, it just says it's linked to. And linked to usually implies a correlation of some kind, which does not necessarily mean a causation. And all of that is in the book.
Sure.
The book actually covers the fundamentals of thinking about the environment and the various philosophical approaches to thinking about the environment, and how to get in the center and be a sensible environmentalist by recognizing that we do have to take into account our own needs for food, energy, and material every day. And there are nearly 7 billion of us, and if they're going to survive, they have to take from the environment that food, energy, and materials. Sustainability or environmentalism, to me, is about learning how to get the food, energy, and materials without damaging the earth in the process, or by reducing the amount of impact we have. It's all about reducing our footprint.
Yes, and each individual being a steward of the earth and reducing the footprint. I agree with that. We do come from a background of doctors who told us to smoke to relax. So that's why we're cynical, you
Yes.
know? And the tobacco companies said, hey, you've come a long way, baby. And we go, no. Obviously, tobacco isn't so good for us now, we find out.
No, but now we have people comparing the petroleum industry to the tobacco industry, the dirty oil campaign, the toxic oil campaign, as if there's some oil that isn't toxic somewhere in the world. So this whole campaign against the Canadian oil sands, for example, and trying to portray it as dirty and bad and evil, and that we shouldn't send it anywhere and we shouldn't use it anywhere. Over 1/3 of the Earth's energy that we use in our civilization is oil.
Yes.
Now, and we use it for everything. We use it for all our, like 95% or more of transportation is dependent on oil. It makes no sense to vilify it as if it's some evil thing.
No, but it does make sense to ask, how are you going to extract it? What are you going to do to the land? All of that.
Absolutely, it does,
It
yes.
makes total sense. How much water does it take to take that oil out? And is there some other way we can do it? Can we
makes sense
drive a
to
Renault
improve,
with an
yeah.
electric battery? Is that a better way to go? Perhaps.
But does it mean you should just say stop doing this and ban it altogether? Or does it mean you should improve the way you do it? See, that again, the book is a lot about that.
Right.
Whether we should ban something altogether, like we did with DDT. We made the mistake of banning it for malaria control at the same time as we banned it in agriculture, and that caused between 30 and 50 million people to die unnecessarily.
So we ask the right questions.
That's a fact.
Thank you. Nice
Thank you
to
very
see
much,
you.
Fanny.
Patrick Moore, Confessions of a Greenpeace Dropout. He'll be speaking at SFU Harbor Center Friday, Feb 18 at 11:45 a.m.
With my book.
with his book called Confessions of a Greenpeace Dropout.